by kindly sharing his expertise and his great depth of knowledge of Indian art and culture, and specifically painting. Thank you, Benoy, for giving us your time and sharing your insights and your passion for art. Some housekeeping, please, for the audience. Audios and cameras will be off during the entire talk. We will have a question and answer session at the end, so you are requested to please use the hand emoji or use the chat, but I think the chat is not there, but use the hand emoji and I will call out your names, and then you can switch on your audio to ask your questions. So over to you, Benoy. Thank you so much for being with us again this afternoon.
Thank you very much, Christine. It is indeed a pleasure to have you, an old friend, invite me to give these talks for the British School, and I'm very happy to share my knowledge of Indian art with this audience. Thank you. Thank you also to Rashmi Gupta and Sean Adams for managing this event and hosting it. Thank you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the philosophy of aesthetics was very highly developed at a very early age in India. By around the turn of the Common Era, the Natya Shastra spells out this philosophy in detail. Later writers, for instance, Abhinav Gupta of the 9th century, who lived in the valley of Kashmir, wrote exquisite commentaries on this philosophy of aesthetics. I was wondering if I had forgotten to turn off my notifications. I have forgotten to, I believe, but excuse me for what disturbance that might come. Now, in this philosophy of aesthetics, our experience when we look upon something truly beautiful, whether in art or in nature, our feeling then is considered to be akin to Brahmananda, the final ecstasy of salvation itself. For in that moment, the veils of illusion of the material world are believed to have been lifted, and we are seeing the grace which underlies all that there is. And therefore you would understand that the creation of art played a very important role in the philosophic path in India. There was the creation of hundreds of thousands of absolutely exquisite works of art, all which were made in order to help us in the path towards knowledge, in the path towards salvation. And you are going to see a very exquisite period of such art. Now, in the year 2000, I had the good fortune of being supported, being assigned by Doordarshan to make one of my pet projects, 26 films on the paintings of India. And in this project, I was able to document and archive all important mural paintings, wall paintings that is, surviving in the country, as well as highly selected masterpieces of Indian miniature paintings which lie in museums right across the world. So I very fortunately got the unstinted support of all these museums, whether it was the Rydberg Museum where we began, whether it was the British Library, whether it was the Victoria and Albert Museum, whether it was so many museums in so many countries. And we were able to archive 5,000 selected masterpieces. Now, this is where this is the source of the wonderful miniature paintings that you are going to see in the film which is being shown to you today. My many thanks to Doordarshan. It's absolutely amazing that in this very commercial world where television is driven by what they call, I believe, TRPs, how many people that view a program. In the midst of such a commercial world, Doordarshan in the year 2000 uh, commissioned me on a project of intense research, pioneering research, and the collection of this absolutely marvelous archive to see that this knowledge becomes available to all. I'm deeply grateful to this public service broadcaster that is Doordarshan. In fact, the Rydberg Museum and so many others uh, are those from the Harvard University Museum. These are the names that come to my mind immediately for the source of the paintings that you are going to see today. And we are going to take a look at the miniature paintings of Kangra, which is a hill state in present day Himachal Pradesh. And I hope you will be moved and, as the Indian philosophy of aesthetics believes, a little transformed by a response to the exquisite and tender beauty and the presentation of the most tender and loving emotions which you will see in this film. I will come on again after the screening of the film to explain all this and explain why such themes were presented in art which was being made for the philosophic purpose. Thank you very much. Rashmi, would you kindly show the film, please?
Art is the reshaping of reality by man to present it in an understandable way. As the artist recreates the world around him, it is shaped by how he sees it and what he believes in. The Indian artist did not attempt to depict only the material reality around him. He wished to share the complete experience of the moment, not just the photographic presentation of the shapes around him. Beauty for the Indian artist has been a reflection of the glory of God. In fact, for the ancient artist, the experience of beauty, the ecstasy on seeing nature or art which is truly beautiful, has been considered as akin to Brahmanand or the final bliss. Join us on this journey into the heart of the Indian tradition of painting. Come with us to the gorge of the Vaghora river, where Ajanta was created, to the courts of the Mughals and the Deccani Sultans. Journey with us through the deserts of Rajasthan and the icy lands of Ladakh and Lahaul Spiti. In the verdant south and in the gentle hills of the north, experience the compassionate view of life that is enshrined in Indian painting.
From the 11th century onwards in India, there was a great revival of Vaishnavism. With it came the Bhakti cult, which was the doctrine of a deep and personal love of the divine, where the soul of man was seen to be yearning always for the Lord who created him, for the tenderness and ecstasy of being united with him. The poet saints of the Bhakti movement wrote beautiful verses about the legendary lives and the love of Krishna and Radha, of Ram and Sita, and of Shiv and Parvati. The love of the divine figures for each other became the ideal of the people. Images of their divine love were used by poets and painters to portray their own love for the Creator. The Bhakti movement led to the making of beautiful miniature paintings in Rajasthan. These paintings followed earlier traditions and had simple and bold compositions. They had an energy and vitality which was complemented by a palette of vibrant colors. After the 16th century, the Rajput chieftains and painters were deeply influenced by the art of the Mughal court. Their paintings acquired the refinement and grace which was developed in the imperial ateliers. The Rajputs travelled to the hills of present-day Himachal Pradesh, and in this beautiful sanctuary there blossomed many exquisite schools of painting. Along with refinement and technical skills, the hill painters brought to their works a gentleness and humanity which was unmatched. These paintings are simple and direct expressions with a pulsating life and a natural warmth. In the paintings of Garhwal and Guler, there is a delicacy and a deep sense of spiritual grace. These styles led to and flowered in one of the greatest styles of miniature paintings in all of India, the Kangra school. Kangra is a small hill state tucked away in the bosom of the green hills of Himachal Pradesh, far from the clamour of the plains. Sansar Chand, who came to the throne in 1775, was the first great patron of painting in Kangra. His ateliers attracted many painters from nearby Guler, who brought with them a refined and delicate manner of painting. Here in Kangra, we see the development of the finest expressions in art. A great confluence took place. The burnished delicacy of the Mughal idiom met the deep spirituality of the land. With the refinement and technical skills in their hands, the spirit of the warm and simple hill painters took wings. They created a large body of paintings, which are among the finest made by man. These paintings bring to us the gentlest and most tender thoughts. They enshrine a deep love for all of creation in a manner which is intensely personal and deeply devoted. Here we see Sansar Chand celebrating Janmashtami, the festival of the birth of Lord Krishna. The world of Kangra paintings is one of tenderness and love. It is the spirit of Bhakti, the ecstatic joy of adoration, the supreme joy of the giving of oneself in the love of God, which pervades the entire world of these paintings. There is a tenderness to the touch of the painter and a sense of joyousness that is rarely to be seen in the entire realm of art. The Bhagavad Puran consists of 18,000 verses, which were composed in the 10th century in praise of Lord Vishnu and his manifestation upon this earth in the form of Lord Krishna. These verses describe the life, the adventures, and the miraculous deeds of Krishna from the time of his birth. The scenes of Krishna's childhood exploits are particularly endearing and evoke the tender sentiments of the worshippers. Here we see beautiful paintings on the exquisite theme of Baby Krishna. The Lord is a mischievous child, with his playful antics giving no end of trouble to his mother. The humanity of these themes, of the interaction between a mother and a naughty and irrepressible child, touch the heart immediately. These simple paintings in their rustic settings are among the most endearing.
These paintings speak directly to people across cultures and across time because they deal with such fundamentally human subjects. The love of parents for children, the love of a child for a mother, watching Yashoda look into Krishna's mouth and accuse him of eating mud, and instead finding there the entire universe. I think everyone is caught in that spell who sees these pictures.
These images of the Lord as a toddler and his naughty pranks, the little blue boy stealing butter with his friends, getting caught, being scolded by his mother, and pretending to be sorry. These images win the heart completely. In the 11th century, the poet Jayadev wrote the Geet Govind, which brings to us the most lyrical images of the love of Radha and Krishna. The exquisite verses bring to life the emotions of the divine lovers in scenes of their separation, longing, and joyous reunion. The poetic themes of love are painted with great tenderness by the Kangra artist. She looks at him, and yet she also looks beyond. The whole of creation is in her eyes. The tenderness with which Krishna looks at her reminds us that it is not only the soul which yearns to be reunited with the Lord waits with as much longing for the soul to come back to him. These are images of intense love. The tenderness in these paintings transcends all barriers and lifts us to another plane where there is complete caring and harmony. The Lord lovingly places an anklet on Radha's foot. He paints her feet as she looks on shyly. Radha and Krishna, in their love of each other, exchange their clothes. The mischievous Lord hides the clothes of Radha's companions, the gopis, as they bathe in the river. The gopis shyly and modestly try to cover themselves as the Lord looks on playfully. The human souls lost in love for the Lord find every opportunity to be close to him. The Lord cajoles Radha as she turns away in annoyance. In these paintings, all of nature responds to the emotions of the divine lovers. The very trees and the flowers seem to tenderly reach out to touch and caress the painted figures. These paintings appear to be filled with a sense of adoration for the world of creation. Every blossoming bough, every bird, the grassy banks are all filled with the joy and the beauty of creation. The cows adore the Lord and wish to be with him. They surround Krishna with the look of utmost devotion. As in the paintings of Krishna, the eternal story of the Ramayana is presented in the Kangra paintings with a delicate and human touch. We share the pain of Ram when his beloved Sita is taken away from him. We see Sita in a distant land pining for her Lord. The paintings of Kangra bring these religious subjects tenderly close to us.
The feelings that come from a direct gaze on an Indian painting can sweep away the rational structures that one has for appreciating the kind of cosmic dimensions of landscape, the macrocosmic understanding. And you get there through the detail in Indian painting and through the immediate experience that allows you to go through doors. And I think it makes Indian painting that much more accessible to more people. It's really a painting of smiles and tears and blood and human experience that is left there for you to feel as much as you can then from that leap to the understandings and the broad philosophical concepts that these experiences are embedded in Indian philosophy and religious thought.
The all-powerful Lord Shiv appears in these paintings as a fond and loving family man. We feel an intimate closeness with the gods in these paintings as they are imbued with emotions we can relate to deeply. Who created these exquisite renderings of love and devotion? Surely it had to have been the hand of the Almighty guiding the hand of the artist. And it was. The people who painted these paintings were not merely artists with the highest skill, but also intensely devoted human beings who considered every work of theirs to be an offering to the Almighty. Pahari paintings transport you to an enchanted place where you feel an affinity with all creation. The grass is soft and dewy under your feet, and the fragrance of the forest hangs thick in the air. There is a coolness that indicates that the monsoons are near. The strains of the sweetest music fill the air, and then, suddenly, you chance upon Krishna. Nothing could ever be more divine and touch your soul more than the sight of the Lord himself. After many centuries, the paintings of Kangra take us back to the sense of the world created by the paintings of Ajanta. Here again there is a full and empathetic response to all of creation. This again is the work of painters who see the harmony of existence and the tender relationship between the flowers, the trees, the animals, and the people in this world. These paintings present us a joyous world. It is the joy of surrender, of the tender blossoming of the flower, the caress of the rich grass on the banks of streams, the melodious call of the birds, the peals of laughter contained in the boughs of the trees full of flowers. These are the simple delights of life in the world which the Kangra painter shares with us.
My many thanks to Sujata Chatterjee, who's here with me and helps me with these presentations and, in fact, with all that I do. Seeing these titles, which were the credit titles for the series of 26 films, is always a great reminder of the vast number of people who came together to help me make this archive, this series, which is an archive of the masterpieces of the paintings of India. Ladies and gentlemen, you would have seen the exquisite quality of the art, where you saw that image of Baby Krishna pretending to be sorry. It is so completely clear that the child is not sorry, but he's pretending to be sorry. And the art puts it across very clearly. Or that image of Radha turning away from Krishna in annoyance. The Hindi phrase puts it quite beautifully. Muh phula ke baithiye. She's sitting in annoyance with the face puffed up in annoyance. Absolutely exquisite details and the painter is able to convey exactly what he wishes to. Amazing, amazing quality of art. Now, some of you may wonder at the themes which were presented in this art and how these themes are a part of the philosophic path in India. Now, you may recall my telling you last time that in the philosophic vision of India, coming from the Upanishads, which were written around the 8th, 9th century BCE, there are no gods. There are deities. Deities were the personifications of concepts and the qualities inside you. And we are moved by these deities brought before us in exquisite art. And in the process of being moved, we are transformed. In the process of being moved, those qualities are awakened within us and we move forward emancipated. Now, the deity Krishna. Krishna comes from the root of the word akarshan, which means attraction. And Indian philosophy does not try to sweep under the carpet the fact that we have this quality of attraction, being attracted to a man, being attracted to a woman, being attracted to one spouse, being attracted to a child, being attracted to so many things. So Indian philosophy does not try to sweep that under the carpet, but in fact it takes that quality, the attractiveness, the attraction, and personifies it in a deity. Now we are helped to see that even our attraction is divine. Even our attraction can take us forward to the graceful and to the divine, which is eventually within us. So indeed, Krishna is one of the most beautiful, one of the most exquisite concepts of Indian philosophy and art. I would be very happy to answer questions that you may have, and in the process to speak further to you about these matters.
Yes, thank you very much, Benoy. I would like to start by asking you about some of the materials and techniques that the artists use. Is it on paper? How is the paper made? How are the pigments made? Do you know anything about that you can share with us, please?
Yes. Now, over the centuries, the mediums, the colors changed. Now, by the time you come to the paintings which you just saw, which is in the medieval period, in fact, late medieval period, these are all being made on paper. Before that, the paintings were made on palm leaf palm leaf manuscripts, as they are called. And running right through from the ancient times through this period also, there were simultaneously paintings being made on the wall. There, there was a preference, in fact, there was the use of vegetable dyes and minerals. So these are natural colors. In different periods of time, there are different colors being used, but you'll be surprised sometimes to see how simple the palette is. Black is most of the time lamp suit. White comes from lime, and ochre is used in. So there's a large variety of colors which are in fact created by the blending, the subtle blending of these colors. Thank you.
Thank you. I also have another question. You had said that the artists had come to the Kangra court. They were attracted from the Mughal court. They moved to the Kangra court, and so what could be the stylistic and the formal links between the Mughal paintings, between the Mughal ateliers, and their handling of the human figure and trees and plants and nature and the birds and animals, and what we see as a part of Kangra or as a part of the other Pahadi paintings? What would be the links between them? What would be the similarities and the differences?
Right. Now, broadly, the different influences that come together over the over a few centuries. By the time we reach these particular paintings, the Kangra paintings that you saw, we begin with, and of course, these come to Kangra and other hill states uh, from the Rajput courts, and those influences are sometimes going to the Rajput courts, also from the Mughal court. Now, what are these influences? The earliest influences are those which are of the manuscript paintings, and the high development of these schools of art, which was in so many parts of Rajasthan, Gujarat, and other places. In the Jain manuscript paintings, the Jain manuscript paintings are very early, and they present the development of the early medieval style of painting in India. In the meantime, you also have the Jain style brings much more angularity. It brings uh, colors in broad splashes. It brings a certain vitality to the paintings. And in the meantime, you also have the continuation and sometimes fading away, but it comes back beautifully in the Kangra paintings of the ancient style of very, very subtle and very tender representations with inward looks, which in the meantime has continued in the Buddhist manuscript paintings. And like I said, in the Kangra paintings, you see a very beautiful flowering again of that exquisite vision of nature and the world and gentleness and tenderness, which had been continued from the ancient paintings such as those which you see at Ajanta through the Buddhist manuscript paintings of the Pala period and otherwise. Now, in the meantime, there has come the period of the Mughal courts, and you have people like Akbar, who's a very vibrant patron of the arts, who has brought together, who has liberally patronized painting, and he has brought together some painters from faraway Persia. But more than that, he has taken these painters who were working in Rajasthan and other places close by, and he has fuse together the beautiful indigenous styles and styles brought from Persia into an idiom in his court. And what happens in his court is that there is liberal patronage and there is there's a fineness which is brought into the paintings, which travels, this fineness in style travels from this court to the many courts of Rajasthan. And from Rajasthan, it goes into what is the areas of present-day Himachal Pradesh, including Kangra, which is the particular school which you saw today.
So at the medieval time, were they working in, sort of karkhanas or guilds, or what was the sort of social structure of the painters? How did they train each other? Was it family based? Was it like a caste and an occupation that the father taught the son, etc.? I'm just curious about that.
The tradition begins with guilds, and it is guilds of artists that are seen in ancient India. And it is largely hereditary, though not at all prescriptive in that way. I mean, the son of a painter doesn't necessarily at all have to be a painter, and nor do people who are not painters have to keep away from painting. But there is a natural tendency for this to be hereditary. In fact, even till recent years, even when I was shooting it, Kangra itself and other hill states, not very far from Kangra, Chamba, so many others, there were painters, and they sometimes had sons who were following in their footsteps. So essentially, it is guilds. Now, the important thing really to look at in these guilds and in this whole system is that it is not in ancient times, at least it is very clear, that it is not the patron who is calling the shots. It is not the patron that is suggesting even the theme of the painting or the particular incident of the story to be painted. And this is very clear when you look at ancient art, because the patrons are many. There are inscriptions on the ancient monuments of India which show that thousands of people have contributed in patronizing the making of the monument. Somebody, a fisherman, has contributed the making of a pillar. Somebody, a housewife, has patronized the making of an architrave of the gate. And these are, in fact, the marvelous thing is that in ancient times it was a very cohesive society, it appears. And it appears that it was the common people who were responsible for the creation of the art. So it is an
Right.
art.
Thank you so much. I think we have a question, Mr. Behl. I saw a hand up. Was it Sujata? Yeah, Sujata.
Hi,
Yeah.
hi. Hello, Mr. Behl. And I wanted to know if any of these paintings the Kangra paintings were actually signed. Were the painting created by master artist, or was it a collaborative effort, as it was in the Mughal court, where several people would have worked on one miniature? Perhaps you could shed some light on that. Or would it have been the work of one artist?
The Mughal Karkhanas were more organized, and they would have been more demarcation of, or rather more, the work would have been farmed out to different artists, and the master artist may have done only the most important sections of the painting. Uh, the uh, the hill states were small places and small courts, and here it is much more likely that just like just like earlier traditions, the entire painting would have been made by the painter himself. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much. And we have another question. Yes, Mayuri, you have a question? Your hand is up.
Yes, yes. Good evening, Mr. Behl. And once again, it is such a pleasure listening to you. I enjoyed your Ajanta one, and I'm not very sure which one is better, this one or that one. So thank you again. It has been wonderful. Mr. Behl, I have two questions for you. First, as you mentioned about sons taking on paintings. So do we have evidence, any, or maybe do we know that even the women worked on these paintings? I'm always curious to know that.
Mm.
Now, in ancient times, the position of women was extremely high in the society. In fact, there is a talk also which I give on the subject of the position of women in ancient India. And it is extremely clear that they had independent economic standing and rights, and they were um, most of the time clearly seen patronizing monuments, for instance, which were not dedicated to those deities that were worshipped by their husbands. They had their own choice, they had their own way of going about things. Now, by the time I believe that, and since we do not have the names from ancient times, because names were not preserved, because names were part of the ephemeral world. Names were part of the ego. And the entire purpose of the Indian philosophic path is to try to obliterate the ego, to leave the self behind. So we do not have names of artists coming from the ancient period, but I would imagine that a very large number of the artists would have been women. We do have women who participated in intense debate and discussion on the most important philosophical matters with the greatest of uh, experts who were also men. So in that milieu, definitely women who wish to paint would have been painting, I imagine. Now coming into the medieval period, because names are again uh, names are few which are available. They're just some few well-known names of the very late medieval period which are available to us. But for the rest, names are not available, not in the early medieval period. Now, we do know that in the medieval period, gradually there is a shift, and the kind of importance which women enjoyed previously, where the monuments were being patronized. Um, well, the majority of patrons sometimes are women. So that kind of importance is certainly not there. So I can just guess, though names are not available and we cannot be certain. I can just guess that there would be fewer women who were artists, but there would definitely be women in the early medieval period who were artists. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Behl. Very reassuring to hear that. Thank you. Thank you for your optimism. Sorry, I have one more question, Mr. Behl. That is a slightly practical one. I mean, we like to go out and maybe get maybe a piece of art collected. So to novice eyes, your Mughal art, Rajasthani painting, and Kangra painting looks very similar. So how do you differentiate between these two, especially if you're looking into buying something?
Well, these are differences which, when you look at enough of them, if you are deeply interested in them, then you must look at enough of them. And then you will perceive for yourself what are the differences, what is the style. You will see it for yourself. And you will find that there'll be a variation of themes, you'll find variations of styles which you will have to be a rasik. You will have to be a connoisseur of the art to enjoy the art, or you would be left dependent upon the art dealers. So the real thing to do is to see enough of them. You could make a beginning if you would like to by seeing there's about probably about 12 or 14 of my films which are on different schools of miniature paintings out of the 26 films of the paintings of India. And these are all of them available in the Doordarshan archives and I think DD National, something like that. The paintings of India are available online. So if you were to go to these films, they would definitely guide you a great deal and you would know what to expect from which school. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do we have any other questions? And I know that we're close to 5 o'clock now, but can I just ask for any last questions? Yes, Sujata. Thank you.
Hi, yes, thank you. It's me again. I want to know where we can see firsthand the best collection of Kangra in India and maybe abroad. Could you
Did you
tell us
say
that?
in India? I
In
lost your
India
voice.
as well. Where can we see these paintings, Kangra
India.
firsthand?
You want to know about India, right?
Yes.
Now, from what I recall, some fine paintings are available in the collection of the National Museum. Um, some are available in the State Museum at Kangra. Uh, these
And
are
also
the
Chandigarh, no?
Chandigarh.
Chandigarh has a fantastic collection.
The government
Okay.
museum at Chandigarh, and when you are traveling abroad, you could try the museums there because this vast majority of very exquisite paintings are in places like I mentioned, the Weertburg Museum in Zurich or the Chester Beatty Library in Dublin or the Harvard University museums and other places.
That's always the most unfortunate things is that, some of the best older work, the antique work is out of the country. But thank you so much. I would just like to ask one more question, and I think we have another person's hand is up. Arya, one of our students.
Hi, yeah, so miniature paintings are such an ancient art tradition, and I was just wondering how they've been sustained in order to stay relevant even today.
Uh, I'm glad you asked this actually because the tradition, see, a tradition has to be current. A tradition has to produce fresh work. A tradition has to draw upon the past roots, but create work which is of the experiential knowledge and the personal expression of the artist. And that's what following a tradition really is. Now, unfortunately, that tradition has been broken. And from the period of the company paintings, as we call them, when the East India Company was ruling India, and then a different kind of art began to be patronized. Art which was meant to mimic, copy the art of the Europeans, or art which showed how odd or how different or quaint the Indians and their customs and their costumes were. So that's the kind of art which was being patronized, and simultaneously they began a very forceful movement towards the copying of European styles of art and painting, the academic realism of European paintings, etc. So the actual traditional miniature painter did not get support, did not get patronage. In fact, society began to lose its appreciation of its own art and began to follow uh, the art of copied European styles. And so what we have today is a very large number, or maybe a fair number, of artists who are making so-called miniatures. What they're doing is they're copying, they're putting in front of themselves an older painting or a photograph of an older painting, and they are copying it. That is not a tradition. That is not the creation of a miniature painting. That is just the creation of a copy. So unfortunately, and I have been around the country. These films were made with shooting in practically every corner of the country, with a lot of research, with a lot of meeting as many people as possible who were deeply connected to art. And I was not really able to find painters who were continuing the miniature tradition. I hope that the spirit of the art, the spirit of the art that sees a divinity in the whole of creation, the spirit of an art which sees joyousness and divinity within us, the spirit of an art that believes that your response to art is akin to the joy of salvation itself. It is that which has to be revived first of all. Then you would have roots which could, from where you could grow and make that art. The realism is of a completely different kind, if you noticed. A superb kind in its own way. It is not academic realism. You do not have shadows which are made, but you have the realism of a child that is pretending to cry. So it is altogether different. It's a different vision of art, which, if I may say, has been lost for the time being. And the most important reason why such a spirit may benefit all of us if it is revived is that it is a vision which is based upon the most tender of emotions, the most kind of emotions, the most universal, the most poignant, and always to awaken the gentlest qualities within us. So that is what would be the treasure of reviving such a tradition. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And that's a great place to stop, is looking at how traditions evolve and how they still remain contemporary, but they still have that sort of philosophical and sort of metaphorical, sort of connections. So thank you very much, Benoy. We've thoroughly enjoyed your talk as usual. Thank you so much for sharing with us. And I'd also like to thank Sean and Rashmi for helping us to organize this. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Good evening.
Thank you, audience, for being here with us.
Thank you. That was lovely. Thank you.